Mr. Kansas' personal battle with leukemia has brought him to the forefront in the fight against cancer. And I presume that is why you have joined him and Dr. Curley tonight. Here at Gannon, we are proud to say, believe in the possibilities. And all of us are here tonight because we believe in the possibilities of John Kansas' invention and research. So please allow me to turn tonight's program over to the man who can tell you much more about his quest that has taken him across the country and back again, from local media coverage to CBS's 60 Minutes in April and also this past Sunday, to countless websites and internet chat rooms, to right here at Gannon University. Please help me in welcoming John Kansas. But I do feel a lot better than I did a year or so ago, and I'm hoping that this treatment will be there for your family, for your children, and for yourselves if you're suffering with cancer, and that it will be something that also will be a gift to the area community to be a part of any phase 2 trials. Of course, that decision is going to be made by Dr. Curley, and maybe if you go to him into it tonight, he just might tell you what his thoughts are. We've had a very, very busy day. We've gone since early this morning, since 7 o'clock. And tonight I said, Steve, I'm going about a sport jacket. He says, man, I'm with you. So, without further ado, let me have him come up, because I know there's a lot of things that a lot of you might want to do after this. And thank you so much for coming.
Coming out tonight, and I'll make one comment about John's remarks. You know, he mentioned that people thought this might be lunacy, and certainly some of the greatest ideas of science have at one point in time or another been considered such. I'll use two quotations by my favorite lunatic scientist, Albert Einstein, who said that if some ideas aren't crazy, then we would not make advances. And number two, people ask why we do research in these sorts of things, and he said it as clearly as anybody, if we knew the answers, we wouldn't call it research. So we're here to do research, and we're here to do what is necessary to get this to human clinical trials. And thank you for throwing down the gauntlet for me, John. I appreciate that. I think I'm going to wait until the end so I can make a fast escape if I have to, or avoid throwing to it. No. Let me talk a little bit, and some of you have heard me speak before. You're going to see a few things that look familiar, and a lot of the newer information I'm going to share toward the end. As all of you may know, in science, we have to be very cautious on how we present data and how we actually display that data. I'm under embargo by some of the scientific journals we've submitted papers to. I can tell you some vague things. I can't get real specific on some things, but I can certainly, at the very least, give you some tantalizing tidbits. Well, as many of you know, the reason John and I hooked up is he had found out that I had been involved in radio frequency research myself back in the 90s, And in fact, it was through research I did at MD Anderson that a current treatment that is FDA approved called radiofrequency ablation was now used quite commonly. Now, this does involve sticking needles into tumors and killing the tumors, and it has certainly helped us. And we can treat some tumors in the liver, the kidney sometimes, lungs, prostate. The problem is it's not a very efficient treatment. And it's also a non-specific treatment. If I put these needles into a tumor, the problem is it destroys not only the tumor, it destroys normal tissue around it. And unfortunately, in about 10% of patients, as a result of that, we get complications or side effects. We destroy something we don't want to destroy. It also is invasive. It requires putting needles in. It damages the normal tissue. And unfortunately, these pieces of equipment are imperfect. Even in my hands, and I'm very meticulous about doing this, 4 or 5% of the time the cancer is not killed completely. Some people who aren't quite as perhaps anal compulsive as I am, those numbers can be much higher than that. So John came to me with this idea back in April of 2005, so a little bit more than 3 years ago now, and talked to me about it, and we spent several conversations on the phone and through emails discussing this possibility and had a bit of an interchange, and then I came up with the idea that maybe this really would work, and John and I had talked about it. He shared some of his patents, and I had another patient at that time by the name of Richard Smalley. And again, many of you know this story. Richard Smalley is a Nobel Prize-winning chemist from Rice University who was treated by the same physician who treats John at MD Anderson for his leukemia. Professor Smalley, after a little bit of coaxing and perhaps even a wee bit of coercion from yours truly, agreed to give me some carbon nanotubes because I assured him I really believed they would heat. He told me that I was a scary surgeon because he didn't know why I would be thinking about nanotubes. I said, well, thank you. I like to think about odd things like that. He then gave me some. We brought them up to Pittsburgh, and lo and behold, they heated much better than ever any of us could have imagined, and this launched us into this research program that you're going to hear about tonight. Now, the problem with this treatment, John has already shared with you, and President Garibaldi shared with you. The beauty of these radiofrequency treatments is any of us could stand in front of this machine and we wouldn't really feel much, if anything, and you wouldn't be damaged by it. You wouldn't get hot. You wouldn't damage any organs or tissues. We're all bombarded by radio waves constantly in the environment around us, and they cause no damage to tissues, and they don't cause you to get heated up. If you have a molecule that has the right characteristics or a particle in the tissue that responds to those radio waves, we believed we could get intense heating of the tissue, intense enough to actually destroy or kill the tumor. But the key here is the radio waves go anywhere that we treat in this zone, so we want to make sure we can get these radio waves to treat only cells containing the particles, and what we want is the particles only in the cancer cells. Well, this is John's device. This was an earlier generation model that he had shipped down to my laboratory. We're now to the Canisius 4 generation. We've kind of done multiple changes. John is a great tinkerer. He reminds me of my great-grandfather who was never quite happy with anything. He was always changing it. And he showed me the latest, along with Jim Rutkowski, the latest generation that they're going to be shipping down to me. So it's great for me because I get new toys all the time, and each time do something a little bit more, a little bit better, so it's wonderful. With these generators, again, the unique aspect of this is this column right here. These radio frequency generators are something that's standard. It's nothing unusual about those. John's genius lies in this device right here. And this is a device that essentially transmits radio waves across this space to this receiving head down here. And so you don't see anything. When the machine is turned on, you don't see anything, you don't feel anything. Nothing changes. But what you have during that time is an extremely powerful electric field across that space. So here's the carbon nanotubes that we first use, and for those of you who get sick on roller coaster rides, you may want to be careful here. So what is a carbon nanotube? This is something that was developed at Rice University and in Japan. These are pure carbon. They are a very charged molecule. They essentially are very negatively charged. They have a lot of electrons available and free. And what I had proposed to Rick Smalley is because of this very charged nature, we thought that they would behave by releasing heat in the RF field. In point of fact, these molecules are extremely tiny, and they're very easy to get into cells. It's very easy to get them into small spaces.